Fabiano Caruana against Hikaru Nakamura. That was the clash, all-American clash of round 6 of the London Chess Classics, and what a game it was. Let's get started and get right into it. Caruana started with 1e4 and Nakamura replied with the Sicilian defense 1c5, and they're going down the Najdorf variation, which arises here, the move a6. Now Caruana chooses the arguably sharpest line there is, bishop g5, and in fact this was a theory battle. They were both very well prepared and it really came down to who knew his stuff better. So let's see what's going to happen here. f4, h6, bishop h4, queen b6. This is a so-called poison pawn variation, or rather maybe delayed poison pawn variation, because black first has played h6, pushing a bishop back, and now going queen b6 and threatening to take on b2. And now it plays a3, which is stopping black from taking on b2, because then white would go knight a4 and the queen is lost. That's why white plays a3, so black doesn't have the square available anymore for the queen. Instead, Nakamura played bishop e7, now bishop f2. This is threatening all kinds of discovered attacks against the queen, so the queen needs to move, goes back to c7, natural square for the queen in the Sicilian anyway. Now queen f3, preparing queenside castle, and here we have it. And this all has been heavily discussed already on the top level. Now g4 is preparing h4 and g5, and black goes g5 himself. And now h4, nonetheless, it's really all about white wants to get this g5 move in. G takes f4, and here g5 would be too early because, well, black could just take on g5 and take on h1, and queen has to take back, and then there's knight g4 coming, and that just doesn't work out that well. Well, actually, I'm talking nonsense here. I'm just recognizing that knight takes e6 would be a problem, because after f takes e6, queen h5 check, white can pick up this knight. But maybe not so much h6, g5 is a problem, but knight e5. Knight e5 first, and then after queen takes f4, now black can take on g5, and this rook is unprotected in many lines. Here, for example, you would need to take with the queen, and then knight takes e4, and this is all not so great for white. So we figured this out. So instead, Caruana played bishop e2. Well, this is, for one, protecting a rook on h1 once again, and also in some lines the pawn g4 can be a target, so protecting this as well. And this has been seen in the game Vella Graf with the black pieces against Anish Giri. So Anish Giri played this exact line, and I actually analyzed this video as well. You can check it out later if you want to. A great game, by the way. I won't tell you who won, but a great game. Razor sharp game, just like this one. In this game, Maxime Vella Graf played rook g8, and here white gets a great advantage after g5, and obviously both players, Nakamura and Caruana, were aware of this. So Nakamura had prepared b4, and that looks strange at first sight anyway, because why is black just giving up a pawn? And we have to dive into variations a little bit deeper to understand. So what we'll see in the game is that after a takes b4, black goes knight e5, and we go down this more or less forced line. So let's compare this to if black goes knight e5 right away. Now queen takes f4, knight e takes g4 is now possible, because if the bishop takes this e5. And we'll see the same position in the game, just with this included. In fact, this might be better for black than what happened in the game, but just to illustrate the point, here after knight d5, there's a potential move, queen f3. This is arguably better for white. And now imagine if the pawn was already on b4, then black could just take this pawn of the knight. Instead, here the knight has to retreat to f6, for example. So I think this is the point why inserting this b4, a takes b4. but there is a problem to this, and we'll get to this in a moment. So we go down this exact line that we just saw, with the only difference, the pawn is on b4, black has given his pawn. And now, however, Caruana doesn't go knight d5. He plays a brilliant move. And that is queen takes f6. He sacrifices his queen for the knight and thus opening up the d5 square for his own knight. Alright, bishop takes f6, the only move. And now knight d5, attacking queen and bishop. So queen goes back to d8, protecting a bishop. And so far, both players have blitzed out their moves more or less. Haven't taken much time. But here, Caruana surprised his opponent, who probably only expected knight c6, which wins back the queen. But in this endgame, black is not worse. Position is roughly equal. So this is what Nakamura expected. But Caruana's preparation went deeper. He had realized here he doesn't need to win the queen back because his minor pieces are superior to a queen here. He just played knight f5. And here Nakamura went into a 35-minute thing, but it's way too late already. His position is probably lost, you could say. Because the two minor pieces, you have to remember that white has just two minor pieces, but in this position they all are in perfect squares, and the black pieces, the queen, doesn't exert any influence, and it's also very difficult for black to create any play. There are just no squares available as well. So here Nakamura played rook b8, because there's the threat bishop b6 right now, and you have to deal with this. But probably the best try would be to take on f5, which is not a move you're happy to make. I mean, just look at this position. The queen barely has any squares available in the first place. The bishop is just a very sad piece. And this is, yeah, probably lost. Bishop b6 the threat, so rook b8. And now rook d3 is a very strong move to allow white to either double on the d file, or if black castles, to double on the g file. And the king also feels quite unsafe. Just let's look at one sample line here. Bishop takes h4, rook h3. Now black cannot take an f2 because of checkmate. Bishop g5 check, rook takes, even this is possible, because the attack with all the white pieces being involved is very strong, and black has to give the queen. Has two rooks now against three minor pieces. Material wise that would be maybe fine, but look at the pieces once again. The rooks cannot really be effective, don't have any targets. This is just winning for white. So probably instead of castle here, this is still a sample variation, it didn't happen in the game. Black should go rook b5 to sacrifice his rook against his super strong knight on d5. But also this is very, very tough for black. Let's get back to the game. Nakamura played rook b8 right away. Now knight takes f6, queen takes f6, and this pawn on d6 hanging. The question is only how to take. And indeed, white should have taken with the knight, but this is quite difficult also to evaluate. Caruana took with the rook. So knight takes d6. Now, first of all, yes, black can give back the queen, but in this position, he's just lost. He's down a pawn already. This one will drop, and the king is bad. It's just all terrible. So king e7 or king f8. King f8, now it can just play a quiet move here, bishop f5. And it turns out once again that black is just helpless, powerless here. All the white pieces are so well placed. So I looked a little bit at king e7, which also made sense to me to have this bishop protected by the rook. But now bishop c5 is coming. Queen f4 check, king b1, queen takes g4, and now knight takes c8, king e8, knight d6 back. And let's just go through the sample line. White is taking some more pawns and taking also the exchange on b8, taking another pawn. And here white has the knight and the rook plus 3 pawns. So this is winning material. And also notice that black cannot take an e4 because of knight d7 double threat, double attack, and white wins the exchange here as well. So knight takes c6 was very strong. Rook takes c6 also gives white the advantage, but it lets black escape a little bit. Bishop e6. Still though, you have to also consider this position is incredibly difficult to play for black. Rook hg1, now castle, and now h5, good move, introducing this idea of bishop h4, and here Nakamura went astray. He still could have had fairly good defensive chances, I would say, if he went queen g5, if he goes rook takes b4. Now bishop h4, of course, that was the idea, and here, in fact, black can give back the queen without losing on the spot. Bishop takes f5, bishop takes f6, bishop takes g4, and the point is if the rook g1, black can play rook takes e4, defend the bishop. This position is still not a pleasure to play, but certainly black has strong chances here. I mean, pawns are equal. Of course, the bishop on f6 is quite strong, and there are issues here in the black position, but this is certainly by far the best try he had. I mean, there's another move here, which is rook f8, and then bishop h4 and drop back to h8, but I cannot believe this. This is also in practical terms impossible to play. Maybe a computer can play it, but not a human. So rook takes b4 seemed just like the best way to practically defend here. Instead, Nakamura went for queen g5, but now just bishop e3 when black cannot take on g4, knight takes h6, picks up the queen. So the queen drops back to f6, and black hasn't really gained anything. I'm not sure what Nakamura had in mind here. Now white picks up this pawn h6 and plays bishop f5. And notice how still the black pieces are all tangled up. Black cannot create any counterplay. And also there's the threat of knight takes f7 in the position as well. In fact, that was possible already here, but really no need for white to rush, even though this is winning as well. So bishop f5, queen e7, but now knight takes f7 would have been very strong indeed. Caruana played b5. He wanted to prepare to strike knight takes f7 first, but it was possible already here. Let's look at some sample lines. Okay, 3 ways to recapture: rook, queen, or bishop. Let's start with bishop takes, very straightforward. Checkmating attack here. The rooks combined will just hunt down the black king mercilessly. Okay, and here, white just picks up the queen, picks up the rook, and it's just over. So that's very simple. The other move is queen takes f7, but now just rook takes e6, rook h6, and rook g1 are coming. Once again, the rooks combined with the bishop pair. Black cannot defend here. So I think what Caruana wasn't sure about was this move, rook takes f7, and now rook takes e6 and queen takes b4, when suddenly black has also some threats of his own. And we can also go down this forced line here, rook g1, rook g7, bishop e6, king f8, and here there's a key point. White needs to play bishop c5. Because if you go rook h8, now you can still go bishop c5, but already it has become trickier. Since after rook takes g7, king d6, it turns out it's not that clear at all. Now we see why the queen is well placed. There's not only this idea, but even stronger now, queen e1, checkmate. And here, to defend against this, white needs to go rook d7 check, king takes e6, and this position is not too clear anymore, since white, well, all the king attack has come to an end, obviously, and white is just a slight material advantage, but that's not clear at all. So instead of going rook h8 check, there's a nice move here, bishop c5, deflecting the queen from this checkmate threat, and now go for this rook h8, rook takes g7, just works out beautifully for white. If the king obviously cannot take on e6 because of rook h6 checkmate, and king f6 is a similar story, rook g6, the rooks just do great work here, and this is winning. So king d6 only move, but now just rook takes b8, and White currently has 2 rooks and a bishop for the queen. There's no check. Well, there's a check on e3. King just goes to b1. And after king takes e6, how does white wrap it up? Very nicely. Rook b6 check. Black has to take. And then there's the skewer. White picks up the queen on b6 and is up a rook. So knight takes f7 was possible right away. But b5, there's also not much wrong with this. And now Nakamura went queen e8. Best defense probably rook b8, but how tough of a move is this to play? The point is just to defend against this knight takes f7 threat, but white can, for example, go b6, have another strong pass pawn. It's just, this is impossible to defend. Now queen e8, and now Caruana did it. He went for knight takes f7, rook takes f7, rook takes e6, because there's a key difference now with the queen on b5. There's no checkmate threat on e1, and actually here after rook h6, Nakamura resigned, because if we go down the same line we just saw, the only difference queen being on b4, then, well, here, check, check, king d6, and just rook h6. And this is game over. I mean, there are many ways for white to win. Black can give 1 check, no more checks, and simple checkmate threat of moving the bishop here wherever I want, and nothing black can do. So brilliant queen sacrifice by Caruana, who just destroyed, we have to put it like this, Nakamura out of the opening. That was just a case of brilliant opening preparation there, out-prepared his opponent, just knew a little bit more. And in the press conference, Caruana said, well, probably my opponent relied too much on the computer, which isn't showing this line right away, because computer, of course, evaluates the queen as stronger. And here we have a case where, as humans, we immediately recognize this is looking terrible for black, but for a computer it's not that clear, and that was Nakamura's downfall. He didn't go too deeply into the position, didn't look with a human eye maybe, I don't know, I cannot speculate too much obviously, but Caruana just was a little bit more knowledgeable, and he figured it out, and then there was just, I mean, barely any chances. This one moment, rook b4, I think Nakamura still could have given Caruana a good fight, but after that it was all white, and a brilliant win by the American player, who is now 11 points within reach of Magnus Carlsen, and this is unheard of. For the last, I don't know, 6-7 years, Carlsen was always way up there. Now for the first time, maybe another player could catch him. But for that to happen, Caruana needs a bunch of more wins, 3 more wins, I think, in the London Chess Classics. So we'll see if he can pull it off. All right, I hope you enjoyed this analysis. If you would like to be notified when I publish further videos and analysis and whatever, you can subscribe to my channel. And let me know if you have any questions, just post them below. And also, if you would like to check out this other razor sharp night of game, it's also, well, probably even up there. Okay, I'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye.